Hey everyone, it's Sonia here to give you another update of what's happening here in Canada. So I gotta tell you, I actually went away for the weekend with Gunner. We went to Hawkesbury to visit my friend Vicky. We went to see Vicky and then we went up to this hunting lodge for a couple of nights, which was a nice break. We really needed a break, you know. So we didn't actually go to Ottawa to the protest, but we were on the road with people who were heading there. So we did get to see all the protesters on the overpasses, and we were in the convoy for a bit. So I want to show you the footage from that. There was a ton of people on all the overpasses and on the side of the road, and it was a really good vibe.
Yes, as you can see, there may be a few dozen protesters out.
Yeah,
just a few.
And I just want to talk a little bit about a couple basic things about the convoy and who the organizers are.
Here we got some supporters.
And other than that, I just want to say that although I wasn't there, it was a really good vibe on the way over.
Oh look, we got a news helicopter in the sky.
Yeah. And from my many friends who did go, they said the vibe at the protest was amazing. It was like really a love vibe. People were just so united and loving towards one another. It was just like the opposite of what we've been living for the last 2 years. And I know that there's been some negative press, but I think what's been happening is that the press is picking the isolated negative things about it and focusing on that instead of focusing on what's happening on the whole and, you know, why people are there and what kind of a vibe it is. But from the people that I know who did go there, they said it was really amazing. They said it was like an incredible experience, the most incredible experience they've had in a long time, that it really lifted them up, made them feel very encouraged. So it seems like what's going on there, it has a very good vibe. So let's talk a little bit though about what they're saying about it and who's really behind it and what is the purpose of this protest. So, okay, this isn't what I want to focus on, but I think it's important to address it. There's been these articles mostly centered on Pat King, who is often described as the organizer of the convoy, and mostly saying very negative things about him, such as the trucker convoy organizer is an Islamophobic, homophobic conspiracy theorist. The trucker convoy organizer. So that would lead you to believe that this guy right here is the head honcho of this whole, what do you want to call it? Phenomenon. A video surfaced of the mobile protest movement's Grand Wizard, Pat King. Also, now he's the Grand Wizard, no less. Isn't that like a clan term? Espousing views that reveal the extremist core of the convoy headed to Ottawa. Oh wait, no, it's not Grand Wizard in the clan. It's Imperial Wizard. Anyway, I'm no expert on the clan, but I know that the word wizard does come up, so I don't think it's a coincidence they use that word. Anyway, who is this guy, Pat King? Is he really the Grand Wizard of the convoy? The organizer? Not quite. The Canadian Truckers Freedom Convoy 2022 press conference, they actually finally gave a press conference. They made sure not to invite like the big mainstream media people because they don't trust them, basically. So these are the top people of this organization or this protest. So this here is Tamara Litch, and she and this guy Benjamin Dichter, these are the two who organized the GoFundMe, and they're really like at the top of this whole thing. Well, she is the organizer. If there is the organizer, it's Tamara Lich. And Benjamin Dichter is the group spokesperson. And this is Tamara Lich's husband, Chris, what's his name? Chris Barker? Chris Barber, sorry. Okay, as for Pat King, here is a list of organizers by region. And you see British Columbia, North and South. And then there's Alberta, North and South. You see Pat King is the organizer for the North Alberta Convoy. But according to the head organizer, Tamara Lich, and the spokesperson, Benjamin Dichter, they have about 40 or 50 people that are working under them. It's like a pyramid sort of structure. You got a couple people at the top, and then you have these other guys organizing these regional delegations of the convoy, and then you have other people under there who are in charge of different things. So there's a lot of people involved, but clearly Pat King is not the organizer of this whole thing. So let's get that straight. So first of all, I hate to have to come back to this subject, but this whole issue about racism and, like, I'm sure you guys have seen this stuff in the news about the white supremacy and all that kind of crap. Personally, I think that whoever it is who's walking around there with flags that shouldn't be there, they're probably some kind of plants. I mean, that's just my humble opinion. They could be plants from the media, the government, the police, from really anywhere. I have a hard time believing anyone would actually go to this convoy and fly das Hakenkreuz, or the Confederate flag. And the Confederate flag, especially, it makes absolutely no sense because we're Canadians. This is like a flag that has to do with stuff in another country. That, like, why would anyone here even fly that? But I personally think that they're probably like provocateurs that were inserted in there from, I wouldn't even put it past one of these like anti-hate groups to insert someone in there so that they could then say that these people are, some kind of racist or something. But just to let you know, out of these organizers here, the actual organizers, Tamara Lich is Métis. That means that she's native. So she can't really be a white supremacist, right? That would be kind of counterproductive for a native person to be a white supremacist. So I don't believe it. That's for sure. And Benjamin Dichter is Jewish. I'm also Jewish, and I can tell you on good authority that we're not white supremacists. So the organizer and the spokesperson, they can't be white supremacists. So, I mean, I just think this is a lot of BS. I mean, that's what people do these days. If they don't like something and they want to smear you, they just call you a racist. So yeah, I don't buy any of that. What are they protesting against exactly? Well, it basically comes down to our governments using this state of emergency to suspend our charter rights and our freedoms and basically implement like a kind of a dictatorship. They're not anti-vaccine exactly. Benjamin Dichter is himself double vaccinated, but they're anti-mandate. And they're also against these sanitary measures or public health measures that have become very destructive, such as the ongoing closures of businesses, putting a lot of people out of business, and just all these measures that have been interrupting people's lives and people's needs for 2 years. I mean, it really does feel like we're heading down a road of destruction if we keep this going. I think already a lot of destruction has been done. I mean, you can't just keep shutting down for 2 years over a virus. So I'd have to say I agree with them on that. So are they anti-vaxxers? What does this term really mean at this point? It basically means anyone who doesn't agree 100% with the government at all times regarding every vaccine, especially the COVID vaccine, and all mandates. That person is an anti-vaxxer, according to the current definition. So I guess they're anti-vaxxers by this absurd, overly broad definition that we now have. But as you see, you can have vaccinated anti-vaxxers. You can take 2 shots and still be an anti-vaxxer if you don't think that every single person in Canada should take 2 and maybe 3, 4, 5 shots. Now, here is an interview that Benjamin Dichter did with Fox News, which I think is very interesting because this will show you a little bit more in depth what their concerns are.
Well, it's simple. I mean, we've seen Canada go from a country of Justin Trudeau's promises of sunny ways into dark authoritarian oppression and control.
Yes.
We want two things. We want to get rid of the vaccine mandates and the passports. And the passports is that's a really concerning one. Yesterday, it was my first time ever crossing the border in my truck with my digital passport. And I held my phone up to the border agent to give him the QR code. You know what he said to me? Oh, it's okay, I don't need it. So what do you mean you don't need it? He said, oh, your phone already popped up on my screen and is correlated with your passport. Can you think of that? Can you believe that? So they know everybody who's coming up to the border before they're there, and they're tracking them. Now, maybe it's outlandish, but what's to prevent the government from introducing that across Canada and not limiting it to just borders?
Wow, that's so crazy. So he didn't even have to show his QR code for his vaccination passport because as soon as he pulled up, the phone sent something to the border guard and it correlated with his passport. So this is all done like through the ether without you even having to do anything, which means like your phone and your passport, it's as good as like basically a tracking bracelet that sends out signals. I mean, obviously it's not around your wrist, but it does the exact same thing. They have the infrastructure for that. So if they can do that at the border to the US, why can't they do that for like provincial borders or even municipal borders or really anywhere they want? So yeah, it's definitely concerning. The mayor, I'm sorry I'm laughing because it is ridiculous. The mayor of Ottawa already said, time to move on to the demonstrators. But that's not going to be happening. I mean, I do realize that having them there with all the crowds and the noise, it's obnoxious for the residents, but I think they think that they're fighting for something larger that the residents will then also benefit from, despite the temporary inconvenience. But are they going to leave? Actually, they said no. Now, a lot of people who showed up for the weekend have already left. And there are people who aren't going to stay that long. But the main convoy of truckers, apparently like their truck includes like a kind of house. So I think it's like a sort of camper area within the truck. I've seen a bit of footage of them. There's a kitchen and there's all kinds of, there's like a little living space. There's not just like a cab and then all the stuff that you're hauling. There's like a little living space in the truck. So apparently they can live in there for months and they have fuel and food for months. And these guys were literally saying, well, the weather's going to warm up soon. So yeah, it's tough now because it's winter, but they're thinking they could actually continue this right into the summer. So they have no intention of leaving anytime soon. So I think the media was portraying it like, oh, it's this weekend protest. But as far as the organizers are concerned, they have no intention to leave anytime soon. So the mayor of Ottawa, he can forget it. That is not going to happen. I've heard a couple things, but I'll tell you both versions of the story. One was that the police were planning to get the protesters out by having their trucks or their cars towed. But then they decided, well, let's not. Let's just give them a little more time and see if we can do this in some agreeable way and they can move on their own accord. That was one version. The other version I heard was that they tried to get them towed and the towing companies refused to cooperate. So we'll see about that. So what did they do on the weekend? Apparently things went okay largely. I mean, there were large crowds. There were a number of speeches. They sang Amazing Grace. And they did go into the mall without masks. I heard the mall eventually then closed. Apparently, of course, there was a lot of noise. But there were some stories that came up which I think are very dubious. Like, for example, they keep saying that some members of the convoy went to the Shepherd what's it called, Shepherd of Good Hope, or Shepherd of something anyway, some homeless shelter, and demanded free food and even assaulted a homeless person. I seriously have my doubts because my friend Frankie is on the ground in Ottawa, and he took footage himself, um, showing that they're giving out food like every 50 feet, and on every street corner there's somebody with a stand. People are going around handing out sandwiches.
Trying to counteract that. That's what I'm trying to talk to. What do you think that? There's no way. We got more than enough food here.
You can get hot dogs, you can get all kinds of food and drinks everywhere. So why on earth would someone who is participating in this protest where the food is freely and readily available go to this soup kitchen and harass people there and demand food? It seems very unlikely. Okay, so then the soup kitchen says they gave food to some of these protesters to keep the peace. To me, that doesn't make sense, because if these protesters were harassing them and had already assaulted someone, why didn't they call the police? See, because they didn't call the police, there's no identification of whoever was doing this. If they had called the police, I mean, I'm assuming that there's police around to call, but if they had called the police, they could have identified whoever it was who was doing that. But since they didn't, we don't know. And so as for all we know, it could have been some agent provocateur. Because I really don't think anyone in their right mind would have gone and done that. Not anyone from the protest. It doesn't make any sense. The French media had been complaining that the protesters were, what did they say? Verbally assaulting their reporters. And I saw a couple pieces of footage from this. And basically what they did was they told the media they didn't want to talk to them and they didn't want them there because they don't trust them, because they said all they do is lie. They don't tell the truth about what's going on. It's true that French people swear a lot. I've told you that before. So I guess if you include a Chris or an Asti in this rebuke of their not being honest reporters, if you consider that to be a verbal assault, well then I guess those are your standards for a verbal assault. But I think that it's fair enough if you don't want to talk to somebody and you don't think that they're honest journalists, that you can say that. But they put a bit of a spin on it. And Trudeau himself had at one time given an explanation as to why the media is so favorable to the Liberals.
You sometimes hear about liberal bias in the media these days, how they're constantly letting our government off the hook for no good reason. Frankly, I think that's insulting. It's clear that they let us off the hook for a very good reason, because we paid them $600 million. You don't get stellar headlines like these without greasing the wheels a bit.
Those are his words. There you have it. Justin Trudeau explaining why our media has a liberal bias. He says he paid them. There was also some footage of Justin Trudeau vowing not to give in to demonstrators, and he was saying not to give in to people who parade around with Nazi flags or desecrate the war memorial, or dancing on the war memorial, or disrespect the Terry Fox statue. Basically, these are heinous people. He's not going to give in to them. How about, never mind that, how about you listen to the concerns of thousands, if not millions, of Canadians who have showed up there, who have behaved very well and properly, and who are saying that you're way overstepping the line and you're destroying their country. How about you just pay attention to those people and maybe negotiate some more favorable terms with them instead of just acting like a dictator? That would be my suggestion. Also, one last thing. How ironic is this? Here's a quote from Justin Trudeau's father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, that he He said in 1971, uniformity is neither desirable nor possible in a country the size of Canada. We should not even be able to agree upon the kind of Canadian to choose as a model, let alone persuade most people to emulate it. There are few policies potentially more disastrous for Canada than to tell all Canadians that they must be alike. There is no such thing as a model or ideal Canadian. What could be more absurd than the concept of an all-Canadian boy or girl? A society which emphasizes uniformity is one which creates intolerance and hate. A society which eulogizes the average citizen is one which breeds mediocrity. What the world should be seeking, and what in Canada we must continue to cherish, are not concepts of uniformity, but human values, compassion, love, and understanding. And this is like the complete polar opposite to what Justin Trudeau is now preaching. That everyone must think the same way, act the same way, do the same thing. Otherwise, they're bad Canadians and they don't deserve to have privileges, which were formerly known as rights and freedoms. A very polarized society is what he's creating. And I think that this is what the protest is about, is to just say, you cannot expect 100% of people to go along with this, what you're trying to do here, and you need to have more flexibility because this is really un-Canadian. Anyhow, that's pretty much the wrap up for now. I hope you found that interesting and that you enjoyed our little bit of footage from the road. And well, that's it. Thank you for joining me in the chat, and thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.